I was sitting at my computer, typing away one day, when I heard a knock at the door, and I saw two figures through the glass. And I thought they were Jehovah's Witnesses, so I got up to open the door. And to my great surprise, they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses at all. They identified themselves as CSIS agents, agents of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
Ken had written an op-ed piece in the Hamilton Spectator on the need for Canada to show a more peaceful approach in Iran. CSIS had to check him out.
I told them that everything I do is very public, letters to the editor, interviews on TV, public meetings in Hamilton, and I didn't feel the need to speak to them in private about it. So I asked them for their card. I took the card and I said, well, I had to get back to work. Have a nice day. I closed the door.
Not all police agents come clean as to where they're from. Some arrive and pretend to be our friends. They talk like us, look like us, even pretend to be sympathetic to our cause. But they are not our friends, and they are not sympathetic to our cause. They are a special branch of secret police hired by our government to infiltrate us and gather intelligence. They are called the ISU JIG. And this man, Kevin Walby, knows all too well how they operate.
Security and police organizations in Canada do infiltrate activist groups. They do embed operatives for sometimes several months. And one example was in Ottawa in the lead up to the G8, G20, where the ISU JIG had an operative embedded in the Ottawa activist community for 6 to 7 months, going to workshops, going to events, even living with activists for a couple months, producing intelligence, feeding it into the intelligence chain, and then eventually departing. I believe the operative's name was Francois.
Interestingly, when I got back at my desk, 2 minutes later, I received a call from an imam in Toronto. At the end of the conversation, I said to him, you know what, I had this most unnerving experience just before you called, and I was visited by two CSIS agents at my door. And he said, are these CSIS agents da-da-da-da-da-da? And he went on to describe them in detail, their appearance. And I was astounded, and I said, how did you know this? And he said, because they visited me too, and a lot of members of our community. And he added that no matter what the explicit message is that these CSIS agents deliver to you or to anyone else, the underlying message is always the same. We know what you're doing, and we're watching you. In other words, intimidation.
If you publicly disagree with any plan Stephen Harper has for this country, you're considered a multi-issue extremist. Protesting the oil sands? Guess what? Now you're a multi-issue extremist. Protesting the government's lax environmental laws? Now you're a multi-issue extremist. Are you a First Nations activist? An anti-war activist? How about just someone who protests violence? You're considered a multi-issue extremist, and now the government has to keep a close eye on you, whether officially or in secret.
At one point, the Vancouver police were feeding information into the intelligence chain, and persons who, this is their language, had mental disturbances or who were mentally disturbed were also being referred to as multi-issue extremists. So what's interesting about it is that it is so elastic. It can be used to refer to almost any form of dissent or activity that police and security agents refer to as suspicious or cause for concern.
When the government takes away the oversight, or when the oversight doesn't really exist because the board that's supposed to be there is all political appointees of the current government, and they never raise their mouths or hands or any objection to what's going on, then the people are not being served. In other words, the police force, or the security organization, has a completely free hand to do what they want, and they know that they're not going to get their knuckles rapped.
Criminalizing dissent allows Stephen Harper to freely promote wars, gut social programs, and get on with assaulting our environment and our planet. No prime minister can have the right to criminalize dissent. No prime minister should have the right. In fact, in the face of this secret surveillance and police activity, it has become our very duty to express dissent. For Operation Maple, I'm Scott Garland.